Snapper are definitely one of the most rewarding fish to hunt in my personal opinion. Their lack of tolerance towards divers outside of marine reserves and their table quality make them an excellent species for honing in your spearfishing skills. They are the type of fish that once you learn to hunt them, it will change the way that you hunt fish all across the board. Hunting this species consistently requires a combination of patience, strategy, time in the water, and as tough as it is, watching a lot of good fish swim away. Even divers with decades of experience on snapper still have wary fish get the best of them, and it's something that we just have to accept as hunters. In this episode we go in depth into snapper hunting techniques that you can begin to employ very early on in your spearfishing career. To maximise the benefit that you get from this episode, I'd highly recommend you watch the How to Increase Your Breath Hold for Spearfishing episode and also the How to Hunt Yellowtail Kingfish episode, as a huge amount of the information and techniques are going to roll over as an incredibly solid base for beginning to hunt snapper consistently. I have to stress that consistently is the word here. Even though snapper can be encountered and shot in extraordinary circumstances that vary from the typical ways that snapper are hunted, our goal is to hunt this species for the table on a consistent basis. The majority of my spearfishing work and the way I position myself around any type of underwater structure, I'll be doing so with snapper in mind. This type of spearfishing can almost be seen as an extension of what we've already learned in the How to Hunt Kingfish episode with regards to positioning yourself on the pressure point and drop-offs, general calmness, and the segments about the fish's lateral line sensors. However, now with snapper, the majority of the time, the opposite applies with the lateral line system. The snapper will be wary of vibration in the water and will not be attracted like kingfish, but will generally do the opposite and will be flighty. For the people watching this episode that have not watched the How to Hunt Yellowtail Kingfish episode, I'll cover off what a fish's lateral line sensors are now so we're on the same page. Firstly, I'll start off by saying that lateral line sensors shouldn't be confused with electroreceptors that sharks and rays use for detecting minute electrical current in the water given off by marine animals. Now, the lateral line system is a series of sense organs that run down the length of a fish. They allow the fish to feel pressure changes in the water and aid in schooling behavior. They help the fish orientate itself and aid in finding and honing in on prey. Now, a classic example of the lateral line sensors in action would be watching bait fish schooling, in real life or on nature documentaries, when you see all of the fish turn together on a dime. Now, this is the lateral line system in effect, as the fish are essentially reading the neighbouring fish's vibrations. It comes as no surprise that fish, sharks and aquatic mammals have evolved means to sense their environment outside of sight, such as lateral lines in fish, electroreceptors and lateral lines in sharks and rays, and sonar in marine mammals. As obviously these animals spend half of their lives in the dark at night time, and some species hunt at depths out of the reach of sunlight. This is why a snapper that's in amongst other marine animals will sometimes have its guard down, because it's sensing the other animals with its lateral line and visually looking at other animals that are in its vicinity. This is why in some areas I do well approaching snapper near sharks or other fish that I would not usually get a shot at. I will admit that there's another side to solo snapper. Often snapper can come in relatively shallow into guts and cracks in the reef and hover motionless and appear to be sleeping. These fish, even though they can wake up and take off very quickly when approached, can be forgiving and can be targeted by employing the snooping technique that we will cover off shortly. Another interesting side to snapper is that they will investigate a diver that is well concealed amongst kelp. The fish knows that something's there and will often approach a very calm and well hidden spearo. This method has different names, but in New Zealand it's generally called bottom timing. The fish senses that something's there with its lateral line and usually approaches quite cautiously, and in some situations will actually approach confidently. A well-concealed diver can often get a shot into a fish using this method. However, it often requires a really good breath hold and a lot of patience. The noise of a snapper swimming away or bolting is quite distinct. As its tail beats the water, it makes a fast thumping sound that a lot of spearos have become accustomed to. You will know if you stray too far away from a reef out over a drop-off, as you may hear snapper bolting without seeing them. This is why the majority of the time when we target snapper, we're diving over ledges and reefs approaching the snapper from above and using the kelp or whatever structure is there to keep all but our head and the spear gun hidden from the fish. And generally when we're checking ledges or drop-offs, we have our spear gun tucked into our side so that it is only the top of our head peeking over the kelp or rock to try and minimize the chance of getting spotted. Even though the sound of a large fish bolting can be quite painful, it's a good tool to begin to learn what types of areas that large snapper are hanging out in. And the next time that you dive in that area, remember to dive it with caution by snooping it or employing the ground baiting technique, which we'll cover off shortly. Snapper can be found anywhere inside of their range. However, as sparrows, we have to use the terrain to our advantage. So it pays to know where to look, but also how to look. Usually the locations where we hunt snapper will be separated into two categories: coastline and semi or fully submerged reef, with obvious crossovers of this type of terrain. So for coastline, I'd be looking for rocky outcrops and points, broken rocky structure, and preferably deeper open water close by. If I'm diving in inshore island, I generally prefer